Welcome to Grew with Portia, the podcast that uncovers the hidden treasures within grief. I'm your host, Portia the producer, and I'm inviting you to join me on a transformative journey where we will exchange laughter, of course, the best medicine of them all. Reflect on cherished memories. Remember that time that the little boy grabbed my hand instead of his mother's at the amusement park? Yikes. And of course, discover gratitude while navigating one of life's hardest challenges, loss. So get ready to grow with me, Portia the producer. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Grow with Portia. I am your host, Portia Booker, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep it with the latest and greatest of all with Grow with Portia. So some of you may know this story about my family, but I had an aunt over 10 years ago who suffered from a brain aneurysm. And even though she is no longer with us today, the one thing that I still take from her legacy and her memory is how she always made people laugh, how she always brought people together, and how she always had little gag jokes. And, as those of you who know about my show, I love to interview individuals who have taken these hard, adverse circumstances and turned them into an opportunity. So today I have the honor of hosting Miss Tess Padmore, who also suffered from a brain aneurysm and may have had some complications later on. But the thing that I love about her, that I've read about her, is that she was able to convert that into an opportunity. So welcome, Miss Tess, to Grew with Portia. How are you today?
I am fine, and thank you for having me. I'm sorry to hear about your aunt. I have a cousin who died instantly from a brain
Mm,
aneurysm, and I didn't know until after mine when my sister contacted her sister. She said, that's how Elaine died. And to this
mm.
day, none of my doctors know how I survived because mine erupted twice.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Tess, I'm curious, I'm just going to dive right in. Obviously, medical changes and challenges come. And as you mentioned, you had two aneurysms, right? And I'm sure that there was a level of grief that you had from the first one and also from the second one. And I'm curious, Tess, what did it take for you to integrate that grief and find your groove again to start talking about it and inspiring other people to talk about their challenges?
Well, primarily, and let me clarify, it wasn't that I had two aneurysms. I had one aneurysm that erupted two times. So I was
Mm,
really a month apart. I was lucky that it didn't die the
wow.
first time. I didn't even go to the doctor the first time. But what I experienced was something that obviously was a life-changing event. Prior to that, I was working on my doctorate at the time in education, and my interest was in health literacy, patient education, and patient advocacy. And my experience with the brain aneurysm was at the point when I finally did go to the doctor, I was misdiagnosed. And so I
Mm.
could have died. Again, I could have died. But essentially, my brain had been hemorrhaging for 5 months. Okay. Yes, for 5 months. Um, and because of, this kind of touches on some of the difficulties that we have to deal with in the healthcare system and the disability system. I'd signed up for long-term disability, but at that time, my employer said, well, your benefit doesn't kick in until Social Security says yes or no, which could take 2 years. So I went back to work. I was in the hospital for a month and went back to work 3 months later and literally did not know who many people were. But I was married, had a house, a family, and I couldn't just not work. And I was supposed to be out a year. Anyway, I went back to work and I was off on disability a few times because of complications. I had blood clots in my lungs, all of those kind of things. And I think one of the important things that people don't always realize with catastrophic illnesses is not just the physical, really the psychological is far more difficult. And no one ever addresses that. And so people are sort of in this limbo of not knowing what happened to them, what does it mean, how's my life changed? And I was never assigned a social worker. So I didn't know what was happening to me. The doctors didn't tell my family that I was dying, and I was. And so it was a whole disruption. Now, the other thing that happened um, was that as a result a result of the traumatic brain injury, my personality changed 100%. I won't say my personality changed. Really, what happened was the person who I was always inside manifested, okay? Because I was an introvert. Now I don't have any inhibitions, okay? So that disrupted my marriage, and I'm no longer married. I continued to work for 5 years until my doctor said, "You're done." The cumulative effect. Okay, I'm done. But then in that following year, they said I couldn't go to school anymore. And I mean, they were right in both instances. I couldn't do it. But what that did to me psychologically was that I felt that I had been thrown away, that I had been
Mm.
discarded. Like, you're not capable of doing anything anymore. And not that I loved my job, but for someone to tell you that you can't do something is really difficult for me, especially when you've been productive, you know?
Right.
I mean, it really is, like I said, to me, it's psychological. And I'm not saying I didn't suffer physically, because I did, but I, I, I was depressed about it. And then I thought, you have two choices. You can sit here and be sick, legitimately sick, and just be sick. Don't do anything. Just get your disability that you're fighting for and all of that. Or you can pick yourself up and figure out how you're going to keep moving forward, because that's the person you are. And so this was, now my grandson's 23. My daughter was 6 months pregnant with him. So, he doesn't understand always why I love his birthdays. That means I survived another year, right? But decided, well, what can I do? What is it that I could do in this state? I had to, so I joined an organization called OSHA,
Mhm.
OSH. It's familiar. They have in the universities, and it's a membership
Mhm.
organization. So it gave me an opportunity as a member to teach again, teach courses, and take courses. I did that. I started taking classical voice and classical piano, because that was a benefit of being part of the university community. And we have the Eastman School of Music. And finally, I got to a psychiatrist, which no one had recommended. And I was lost. And in therapy, one day he said to me, "You should write." And my reaction was, "Who would want to read what I write?" And he said, "That's not the point."
Right. Right.
That's not the point. And so I started journaling. And when I started writing, I found my voice. And I'd always said to him, I felt like I was at the bottom of a well screaming and no one could hear me. But when I started writing, it was like everything, all this stuff just sort of poured out of me. And I did that straight for 8 years, just journaling, journaling, journaling. And then I met an editor, someone I was introduced to, someone who was leading a women's writers group, and had been executive director of one of the writing organizations. And I'd said to her one day, "I just have all this stuff. I don't know if it's a book. I don't know what genre it is, because I'm an accountant." I said, "I don't know what any of this is." And she took it and she went through it. She said, "You have 5 books here. You have 5 books, and these are the 5 books." So that happened at the same time. As a result of all the respiratory difficulties, I decided to get back in the pool, and I
Mm.
couldn't do laps anymore. So I started doing aqua aerobics. And at the time, I knew how to swim, but I had always worn my hair short and natural. But at this time, my hair was longer, and I couldn't find a swim cap. And so I was in the pool 2 weeks, swim cap didn't fit. I went online, everybody else was looking for a swim cap. And so I drew a picture, went to a tailor. That's not how it's done. Went to a tailor and said, "Can you make this?" She said, "I can make anything you want." I said, "Well, a lot of people need this. You can make a lot of money." So I went to buy the fabric. And when the woman was cutting the fabric, I said, "Wait a minute. I should be selling this, not her." So that's how I had my first prototype, and my design got patented. And I started selling these swim caps back in 2013. I mean, there's a lot out there now, but there wasn't then. So it was a way, and I found out how high the drowning rate was in the minority community among children.
Mm.
And so it got much bigger. It got much bigger, that this is something important to do. Yes, I can still contribute somehow to society, you know? And so it was good for me in a way. It was, whether my business becomes successful or not, it was a way for me to prove that I should not be discarded, that
Yeah,
I
and
have
you're
something to give.
contributing. Yeah.
I'm contributing, and I shouldn't be discarded. And so that's really the underpinning. And there's things I can't do anymore, but still, just kind of just keep tinkering, just keep inventing. And I have a second swim cap that came out about a year ago, and I self-publish. I've self-published two children's I write creative nonfiction, but that same editor took one of my essays I had written when my dog died that day, and she said this should be a children's book. And so I have one children's book that's about grief and loss. And then the
Mm.
second one is about the twins that I adopted after he died, the dogs. And it's called Twin Tales, but it's really about adoption. So I have two children's books out. I'm writing a memoir now for all my adventures and the different places I've lived and all that stuff. But the underlying, I think as far as the brain aneurysm goes, and any catastrophic illness, whether you're a cancer survivor or whatever it is that, my goal, my objective, what I have to offer is, what are the things I did to survive? You don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't let someone put you in a corner and cast you aside, because you can choose to be sick. I mean, I did it for a little while. It's easy, but it's not healthy. It's not healthy. And so if you can contribute something somehow, we all can. Even if it's just talking to doctors to try to help them understand the patient perspective, because I was misdiagnosed, and I'm very fortunate that I didn't die. And I had to walk away from that doctor in order that's otherwise I wouldn't be here today, you know? And after going through all of this, I learned, like many people do, I live every day like it's the last day.
Mhm.
So I don't have any stress in my life. My marriage ended after 30 years. I speak my mind. I always did, but I really speak my mind. I have
Wait, now
to
you
edit
know
a
for
lot.
sure, huh? Wait, you use fine uses, colorful keepsakes, if you catch my drift.
There- there's people that know me pre, traumatic brain injury, and people that know me post. Okay. The ones that know me before said, "Oh my God, I never heard you curse before. Oh my God, you just get out there, you do anything." And then there are the people like my grandkids who only know this me, and they tend to say, "Grandma," when I'll, burst out singing or dancing or something. But, life is good, and, I believe we're all here for a reason.
Mhm.
And if you can
100%.
help one person, then you've contributed something. And, my biggest takeaway as far as surviving that has always been, I haven't had the opportunity, but I really would like to speak to medical groups, about what my experience was like, not just with the doctors, but also with the disability system.
Yeah.
Because there were times when I would say, what if I didn't have a college education? What if I didn't speak English? What if I was blind? What if? And I'm traumatized by it, and still had to go, look for advocates to help me. But I knew enough to do that, you know?
Mhm.
And so really you go through the most difficult time, and regardless of what people say, there are many things in life that we do alone and we go through alone. You die
Mhm.
alone. Someone might be sitting at your bedside, but you die alone, you know? And when you're going through traumas like that, it's rare that you find someone who understands what they're going through. You know,
Right.
I was in I had to go to the emergency room because my face was swelling one time, blood leak and whatever. And, they just had a curtain in between the woman and me next door. Well, the woman in the bed next door had had brain surgery 3 days before for brain aneurysm. I was supposed to go home in 3 days, but I was there for 30 days. And they weren't ready to release me, but my sister talked them into it. But anyway, when they left the room, she's crying. And she kept saying to the nurses and doctors, no one understands what I'm going through, this pain, all of it.
Hmm.
And when everyone left, I just said through the curtain, I understand. I said, I had a brain aneurysm. I know what you're going through. And I was able to talk to her and kind of help her because when you go through it in the beginning, you're just lost. You don't know
Right.
where you are or you're disoriented. And I mean, they literally put me in a wheelchair and just wheeled me out the hospital.
Mm.
And so, to the extent that I can, it's one of the goals that I haven't been able to get that right connection
Hmm.
to get to the people that I need to talk to tell them what I have learned, what resources are out there, the strength to keep going forward, and give yourself
Yeah.
purpose.
Well, and then too, Tess, I mean, opening yourself up, right? What are the odds that through your challenge of having to go there for a brain bleed or whatever, that you would be that blessing for somebody else? You were that hero that you needed during that time and you could pay it forward. So you making
Exactly.
that choice to not stay sick, to actually step back into society, right? Learning to be more assertive, showing your grandkids, right? Giving others permission to turn their adverse circumstance into an opportunity. What a beautiful thing that you've done, Tess. And Tess, we're going to be wrapping up here soon. But I know,
Okay.
Tess, there's going to be somebody out there who wants to connect with you. Maybe it is a medical group that wants to have you come in and share your experience to help educate the new professional doctors and nurses that are coming up. How can they connect with you, Tess? And what do you have coming up in the next 6 months or so? I know your memoir. I'm excited. So when your memoir comes out, Tess, please, we'll have you back on. And so please share with us how our audience can connect with you and also what you have coming up in the next 6 months.
Okay, my email address is Tess at wolfclan, that's spelled with a C, WOLFCLAN LLC.com. That's my email address. I have two websites. One is called Egghead Socks, SOQUES.com, and that's my headwear. So I have not only swim caps, I have chemotherapy caps, I have sports accessories, anything. My tagline for my headwear is all you need is a head. Okay? You don't
Mm,
have to have hair, you can have a lot of hair, it doesn't matter. We're working on my author's website now called tesspadmore.com, and my books will be on there and talking about wanting to go out and talk to people because survivorship is survivorship. Whether it's
okay.
cancer, brain aneurysm, we all go through that same thing. And so that website we hope will be live by the end of the month and then people can reach out and schedule times to talk to me or have me come out and talk. I go out to schools and I read to first, kindergarten through third grade. And I have a new children's book coming out, hopefully before the end of the year, called The Garden War, Our First Garden. And my grandson and granddaughter are the characters in that book. And I'm working on a memoir. So definitely people should reach out. I'm on LinkedIn. That's my most comfortable platform for me.
Okay. Hey, you know
Yeah,
what?
that's
One,
my most comfortable platform. So I'm hoping to connect with people and for all my stuff, books and my headwear, I sell wholesale. So if a group wants to get together, a group of swimmers, they don't have to buy them individually. They get together and say, hey, we want to get wholesale pricing, and I'll do that. I'll accommodate that. Same thing with the books. I want to get the books out to the schools. There are a lot of children that are grieving, and there are a lot of children waiting for homes. So adoption And loss and grief is very important for kids. And I've had adults use those books for themselves when they've lost someone or lost a pet. So get out there, eggheadsocks.com, SOQUES. I don't sell socks.
Right. These are for your head. Just that's all you need is a head, is what
All you
Miss
need is
Tessa
a
said.
head. And the upcoming author's website should be up in by the end of the month. And I'm going to start a Substack and have my newsletter on Substack. So I can talk
Excellent.
about different things like health literacy and patient advocacy. That's important to me.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, everybody, that was Miss Tess Padmore that you heard from on Grew with Portia. And that concludes another episode. And everybody, until next time, peace and hair grease, everyone.